Hi, in this video, I'm going to backtest and optimize the Ghanshyam 920 option buy strategy that I covered in my last video. If you haven't seen that video, I would suggest you first have a look at that video, understand the strategy that has been built, and then have a look at this backtest report and optimization process. If you don't have a look at it, you won't be able to understand what is going on very well. So without any further ado, let's have a look at the backtest report of this particular strategy. So I have already backtested this strategy for the last 3 years, and let's have a look at the stats performance of this. So I will open this report, and you can see that this report has a P&L curve which is straight downwards over the last 3 years. After that, you will be able to see that the drawdowns have pretty much always kept increasing. So had you allocated even 50,000 rupees to this, your capital would pretty much be wiped out. After that, you'll be able to see that the losses that the strategy generates are much higher than the profits that it generates. And pretty much from the return histogram, you can see that the frequency of positive returns, which is marked by these green color bars, is much smaller as compared to the frequency of the red color returns, which means that the probability of you having a negative return is much higher as compared to a positive return. So why on earth would we want to pursue something like this as a strategy? So to answer that, let's first understand what exactly is a strategy. A strategy is nothing but an edge that you are trying to optimize for, and the trades that you are taking in order to optimize for that particular edge. So out here, whenever you see something like this as a P&L curve, you should understand that when you see something like this, or a curve which is somewhat like this, you can understand that there is definitely some kind of an edge that is there out here. There is definitely an edge out here, but our trades that we are taking are definitely flawed. We are making a mistake with the trades that are being generated. So let's first try to improvise on the edge that we currently have, and then see what can be done in order to turn around this entire strategy. So in this strategy, I have taken trades based on the first in the money option. So if I show you my call option, I'm basically looking at ATM minus 100, which is the in the money option. And in my put option, I'm looking at ATM plus 100 points. So I'm looking at an in the money in the call and put. Now let's see what happens if I don't look at an in the money option, but if I look at an out of the money or at the money option. So I have this at the money strategy that I have backtested. Again, it is for 3 years. I'm again looking at the backtest stats for it. So now if I open this report, so when I look at the money report, I can see that as compared to going in the money, it is not actually benefiting me a lot. The graph is pretty much the same. So it has an initial taper, and then it is quite flat. Now let's see that if I go out of the money, then what happens? So I will test it for out of the money. So I'll now download the stats PDF of out of the money. And let's now compare the out of the money report with the P&L curve of the in the money 200 report. So now I can see that if I'm out of the money, again the same thing is following, where I have a P&L curve which is flat after a point, which means that this particular strategy is probably working well in some kind of market environment, but it is not working in other, like all market environments, which is why it would be a very long phase to recover any drawdowns. So now let's see, now that we know that going towards out of the money is not helping, let's see what happens if we turn around and go more in the money. So this strategy basically is at 100 points in the money. Let's see what happens if we go 200 points or more in the money. So here is a report which is 200 points in the money. Now if you notice something out here, you will see that the when I went a little more in the money, the amount of P&L curve, the loss that it was taking, what was previously around something around 40-50,000 in value, has now reached till around 70,000 in value, which means that going a little more in the money is actually helping me going towards where I want to go. So for that, I will now I have a clue that going in the money is actually helping me. So in order to optimize more on the clue, let's try and understand what happens if we go 300 points in the money. So I have a backtest report where I'm looking at a 300 point in the money. So now if I look at that report and compare it with the 200 point, I can see that after looking at 300 points in the money, the strategy is going even further down. So what was previously 70,000 has now gone towards 80,000, which means that it is going further deeper. Like wherever there is some edge that is captured more when I'm going more in the money. So with that logic, I'll try and push it to the limit by going 400 and 500 points in the money. So let's test with 400 points in the money and see what happens. So with this PNL curve, I can see that by going 400 points in the money, it has gone even further below, which means that what was previously looking somewhat like this has now started looking somewhat like this and this. So this means that it is definitely getting some amount of edge from going more in the money in the options. So now let's see what happens if we go 500 points in the money. So when I look at 500 points in the money, if I download the report for that, let's have a look at what it does. So you can see that again it is being pushed more and more towards the lower side, which means that the graph, the overall graph out here is getting steeper and steeper. So this is exactly what I want. I want my graph to get more steeper, and then after that we can work on improving the profitability aspect of it. So now that I know that by looking at a 500 point in the money option, it is giving me a good steep graph. I can now work on a strategy which does exactly the opposite. So the logic out here is that let's say if I buy at this point and if I sell at this point, there is some amount of difference out here which I have lost. All right. But at the same time, if someone else sells at this point and he buys at this point, which means that the loss that you made is basically profit for someone else. So if I switch my trades and instead of going for a buy, I go for a sell, and instead of a sell, I go for a buy. By just doing that, I can capture this difference that I was seeing in the backtest report out here. So let's now have a look at what happens if I change the positions out here. So previously in the last backtest report, I was looking at a buy strategy. Now I have just simply modified the instrument to trade out here. Instead of buy, I have changed it to sell. So I am now looking at a 500 points in the money sell call option and a sell put option for my strategy. So let's see how the PDF report, how the report changes when I do something like this. So you can see that what was previously a complete loss is now actually giving me something like a good amount of profit out here. So this is the power of backtesting, so that you can get to know where your strategy is making a mistake without actually losing real money. So now let me take this a little further in terms of optimization. Now I know that 500 points is actually giving me some amount of alpha. So let me see what happens if instead of keeping on going in the money and dealing with liquidity issues, let me see what happens if I go into a futures altogether. So now I have backtested this with something like a futures instrument. So here is my futures trade, and let's see how the PDF looks like for a futures. So instead of looking at in the money, now that I'm looking at a futures trade, I can see that what was previously in profit of around 80,000. So if you see out here, the max profit generated was around 80,000. Now if I switch to a futures trade, the max profit that I'm generating is close to around 1 lakh rupees. This is the difference that is being generated just by changing the instrument. Now, if you look at this particular report, you will see that all the crests and the troughs, which means all of these kind of drawdown phases are quite large. So there are quite large drawdowns and regular drawdowns in the strategy. What can be done to improvise on these things? So in order to improvise it, what I did is I added a simple trailing stop loss in my strategy. So I use the advanced settings to add a simple trailing stop loss. So let's see what effect does a trailing stop loss have on this particular strategy. So I have this backtest report for the same 3 years with a trailing stop loss. So now let's check this PDF and see what happens. So with the trailing stop loss, I can see that what was previously full of crests and troughs is now become much more even. So you can see what was previously very choppy in terms of a return curve has now become fairly flattened. As usual, I will share the same link in the description. Have a look at it, backtest it, make more modifications as compared to what I have done, run it in different situations and see how you can optimize your own trading for better results using Tradetron. So I hope this video helped. Thank you very much.